Exodus 21 verses 24 and 25 says, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. You've probably heard people say, an eye for an eye and the whole world goes blind. Sadly, I've heard professing Christians even say that, and it's a terribly foolish thing to say. Do you realize it's blasphemous? Why? Because God established the standard eye for eye, and when you say eye for an eye and the whole world goes blind, you're saying that God's either a liar or he's stupid. First, let's establish who gave us the standard eye for an eye. The fact is, Jesus did. Jesus is God who came to earth as the virgin-born child of Mary in order to grow up and become the Savior of the whole world and die as the sinless Son of God, paying for the sins of the whole world. Jesus then rose from the dead bodily, and he will save all who will believe on his death, burial, and resurrection, according to 1 Corinthians 15, 1-4. And he has promised to return and receive his children into his presence for eternity. But Jesus didn't come into existence when he was born of the Virgin Mary. Micah 5:2 prophesied of his birth and his birthplace and said, but thou, Bethlehem Ephratah, though thou be little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of thee shall he come forth unto me, that is to be ruler in Israel, whose goings forth have been from old, from everlasting. We've established that Jesus is the I Am. He said so, and you can see that in John 8:58. He's the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the ending, in Revelation 1:8, his words. And when the Lord shows up in the Old Testament, it's Jesus. And Jesus is the one speaking in Exodus 21, verses 24 and 25, establishing the standard of eye for eye. The second thing to settle is what eye for eye means. It doesn't mean that every time someone commits a crime you poke their eye out. That's the exact opposite of the meaning. What eye for eye means is that punishment for crime is to be proportionate. So if you do poke out another man's eye, the punishment can't be the death penalty or some other debilitating crime. Jesus says that crime and punishment was to be retributive, not vindictive or cruel or unusual. The Eighth Amendment to our U.S. Constitution is based upon eye for eye, by the way. So you see that first, people will pervert the true meaning of eye for eye, and then they make a false conclusion that the whole world goes blind if eye for eye were enforced. The fact is, eye for eye ensures that the world maintains a balanced, humane criminal justice system. It protects citizens from abuses. The fact is, liberals under the money influence of men like George Soros are making sure that punishment is nowhere near as retributive as it ought to be. Instead of eye for eye, the godless liberal enforces soft sentencing for an eye and sets violent offenders loose to victimize more innocent victims. Some claim that Ghandi originated the saying, an eye for an eye will only make the whole world blind. But did you know that there's not any evidence he actually ever said such a thing? And Ghandi was a Christ-rejecting racist who despised the blacks in South Africa. He practiced a pagan version of celibacy while sleeping naked with young girls to supposedly test his will. He neglected his own family, drank his own urine, and he went to hell, rejecting Jesus Christ and the gospel. So even if Ghandi did say it, it would be a strike against the saying, not a point in support of it. And the standard set up by Jesus is required if we are going to maintain a civil, lawful society. In the words of the Apostle Paul in 1 Timothy 1, 9-11, knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and for sinners, for unholy and profane, for murderers of fathers and murderers of mothers, for manslayers, for whoremongers, for them that defile themselves with mankind, for men stealers, for liars, for perjured persons, and if there be any other thing that is contrary to sound doctrine, according to the glorious gospel of the blessed God, which was committed to my trust. And that's the word on eye for eye.